Yeah, yeah. Good morning to everyone, dear friends and colleagues. Yeah, this is Bharat Desai from Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Uh, it's my great pleasure and privilege to address this August gathering, uh, which is taking place at a very momentous time, uh, uh, as a corollary to this. The United Nations General Assembly driven process, towards a global pact for the environment. I mean, happy that the French government took this initiative to give a push to activate the plenary organ of United Nations to trigger this process. And for me, from personally, and I'm really admirer of this, the plenary organ of United Nations, which I call as a conductor of a grand orchestra. And it's all the more important that this comes up as we say, it's a great time of perplexity so far as field of international environmental law and governance is concerned. I profusely apologize for not being able to come to Paris personally, notwithstanding this very gracious invitation extended to me by colleagues, Jan Agula, Jan Carbrad, Julie Ferrero, and George Venulas. Personally, I think in the university also we are going through a very difficult time, and because of the administration has been playing a very difficult role for some of the scholars who are engaged, in this kind of a cutting-edge research work, and that makes our task difficult. And this is my, I must say that this is my 6th visit abroad, which I've been forced to cancel, for no ostensible reasons, but be that as it may, well, I'm happy that I was asked to record video talk and to send it to. So I'm able to reach you, through this medium. Now, at the outset, within very limited time which is available in this morning inaugural session, I thought I'll just try to touch upon briefly in terms of the very significance of the process, what I call the lawmaking process, which is triggered, through this resolution of the United Nations General Assembly. And as we know, General Assembly has been playing a remarkable role both in the lawmaking as well as institution building processes, for more than I would say 4.5 decades or so since the first UN Conference on Human Environment took place. So apart from those global conferences which the General Assembly itself has been doing, the Assembly's own role in terms of its, I would say, the soft normativity which the Assembly has been able to trigger, which is remarkable, and especially in the field of environment, that for all the connoisseurs of international environmental, for us is a very heartening moment. That it's again the General Assembly has decided to literally to build the cat, and as a sequel to this process, the international conference on global pact for the environment, is taking place just 10 days before the final third substantive session of this multilateral negotiation process is about to take place, for instance. And so I think this gives us an opportunity to the assembled scholars here in Paris, to do little brainstorming in terms of the not only the background to the global pact for the environment, but the content, which finally the pact will be able to carry. The process through which the pact will be given due consideration by the General Assembly. How what form in which the pact will finally see the light of the day, for instance. And ultimately the follow up which could be done. Now, as we understand, the pact's ostensible purpose has been trying, to try to identify those gaps in the field of environment. I'm sure other colleagues and friends will will duly focus upon some of those considered gaps which are also sought to be highlighted in the report of the Secretary of the United Nations. But from my perspective, I thought I'll touch base upon this institutional architecture so far as the global environmental governance is concerned. I have been as a student of international law and international organization, I've been able to apply my mind to for quite some time, almost for last 2 decades or so, to this architecture of global environmental governance. And when we look at this architecture, the kind of the mosaic which exists, which is a very crucial architecture, which we need to make sense of it. We need to ensure that the entire jigsaw falls into its own place. It's able to deliver the goods and also to cater to the needs and aspirations of the sovereign states. Because sovereign states have reposed their faith in those institutions. So I think that makes much more important that the institutions are able to deliver the goods. And so as a part of this global pact for the environment, I think these crucial components will also need to be addressed. And in order to address those components, I thought I'll zero in, so far as 3 important components are concerned. What I call the tripod of institutional architecture for global environmental governance. And on the first part, as a part of this marathon lawmaking process which we have been talking about, and what we have noticed that in the post-Stockholm period, there are too many treaties which have taken shape. What Edith Brown-Weiss has called as the treaty congestion. There are too many treaties which have been there. There are treaties and treaties so far as the field of environment itself is concerned. There are treaties which are called hard law. There are some treaties which have a outer shell, hard shell with a soft belly, which are not able to stand on their own feet. And in view of the fact that this series of these what I call the multilateral environmental agreements, I have a full monograph on this issue, published by Cambridge University Press in 2010. That when we try to declutter these MEAs, which are expected to be, the numbers range, depending upon how you count them. 300, at least 300 of those multilateral environmental agreements. Out of which there are some which are major agreements, principal agreement, where there is unprecedented number of states which are parties to them. More than 100 plus are there. Some of them they have a universal membership also, but they're beset with plenty of problems. Not only in terms of the location of these multilateral environmental agreement secretariats. They are located not only in different countries but different continents. And there are a host of those issues which are there, not only in terms of the host country agreements, the relationship agreements. Those are the issues which are there. That includes some of the agreements which are UNEP administered, agreement which are administered by IUCN headquarters. Agreement which are also administered by other entities. And I think not only in terms of the location of these secretariats, but also institutional interlinkages, for instance, the synergies, how these agreements need to relate to each other, and since it is of a major concern to many of us, that there is a so-called kind of a proliferation of these agreements, because there are sector-specific lawmaking approach which has really taken the root, as a result of which, these agreements which have taken place, now they have taken place in an ad hoc manner, peaceful manner, not in a very concerted and cohesive manner, because nobody had the time for that. And they are the need-based institutional responses to the global problematic which has taken place, from time to time. And so I think the time has come where we need to make sense of them. Trying to ensure that they relate to each other. And one of the important formula which could be grappled with is what is called the co-location of many of these secretariats, for instance. Cluster-based approach, like biodiversity related convention, chemicals and hazardous waste related convention, atmosphere related conventions. So these are the clusters which are there. Some progress has taken place so far. The Geneva based conventions are concerned, like Rotterdam, Stockholm, and Minamata Convention, for instance, they have started having the back-to-back meetings of these conventions. So some decluttering has to take place, so that you deliver the best. For instance, so far as the very purpose for which these agreements have been there, a convention like climate change has been really proliferated. It's literally blotting, it's bursting at the seams, so to say, and they say climate change issue has emerged to be one of the, I would say, literally like the bottomless barrel. We don't know where it will end. How are you going to make a dent on it? What other really crucial things which are required to really see the result? There are states which have divergence of opinion so far as the sheer methodology of addressing the climate change issue is concerned. There are climate skeptics which are around, and there is a simmering crisis which is really impending, and we need to really make sense of it. So I think, so far the institutional method is concerned, some serious thought has to be there. I would say, as a part of that, global pact process, some little process which can enable in the future to pick up the threads and subject it to a kind of a systematic kind of a follow-up activity will be perfectly in order. Second important pillar, is on institutional, so far as the within the UN system itself, we need to have the institutional architecture which has the sufficient capacity and wherewithal to address the environmental challenge which we are literally facing. One of the important component, I would say the two part that approach within the UN system. One is, of course, this UN's own environment program, which is the subsidiary organ of the United Nations General Assembly, which somehow came to be located, in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi, one of the only premier UN entity to be located, far away from New York, Geneva, and Vienna, those United Nations offices, So it was done with a great funfair. It was done, I would say, when the then Indian Prime Minister, when she went to Stockholm, and she was charged, she was lover of nature, she wanted give a big push to it, and it seems there was some kind of a consideration at that time, to have location of UNEP, between New Delhi and Nairobi, and it seems the then Indian Prime Minister probably, give a go ahead, in favor of Nairobi, for African solidarity, for instance, But now the time has come, I would say, when we need to give a little serious thought. Although the UN Environment Program is gradually inching towards what could be its ultimate destination, and I fondly recall my conversation with the late Dr. Wolfgang Burhani, just few months before he passed away, at Maritime Hotel in Bonn, when I especially went to see him, and he said he was quite optimistic that UNEP will finally see the light of the day as a full-fledged specialized agency, and almost for all practical purposes, UNEP has those kind of trappings, without being a formal functional international organization, or what is called the specialized agency of the United Nations. Now its membership has been made universal. It's called UN Environment Assembly, where all the member states will participate. It takes place once in 2 years. The 4th session of the UN Environment Assembly has just taken place in the month of March. But and we saw that because of the sheer location, whether we like it or not, although a lot of governments were quite concerned about this issue earlier also, when Dr. Klaus Toffer was the executive director, he was in the forefront as a part of the Toffer Task Force report. These issues have been addressed, where the UN office in Nairobi was sought to be given not the desired kind of a treatment. The Toffer Task Force report was quite clear. But then Nairobi also had problems in terms of security issues, where the issues of location, and we could see the fallout. That most of the staff members are not in a position to keep their family member. The issues of safety is also very much there. So probably I would like to just throw that issue in the larger interest of global environmental governance, in the larger interest of the UN's own stakes and credibility, so to make a decisive dent so far as environmental issues are concerned, then do we need to really take a look at that part, as a final culmination, when UNEP will finally be elevated to the status of a full-fledged specialized agency, whether what I prefer to call as the United Nations Environment Protection Organization, called UNEPO, and as a part of my earlier proposal published in the roundtable and earlier in the Indian Journal of International Law, what the it was, I think, the former French president, had mooted that proposal in 2003. What he called a, UNEO, United Nations Environment Organization, and which became officially the EU proposal, to designate, UNEP as a full-fledged specialized agency, So that will again depend what shape, because it will be a treaty-based entity as and when that it has to take the shape. Because in order to address that issue, about the successive executive directors of UNEP has been facing, have been struggling with that issue, and we saw the latest, very dynamic executive director which UNEP had, Eric Solheim, a troubleshooter, ambassador at large, who tried to literally, make UNEP more visible, and he was globe-trotting, for instance, and you say ultimately, that came, draw the attention of some of the government, where they say almost 80% of his time, he had to travel, for instance, and with at the sizable cost, to UN environment's budget itself, and probably led to a situation where Eric Solheim had to step down, but because probably somebody will say that how do you reach out, to the different parts of the world where the real action will be like. So we need to literally, I would say, give a little serious thought to it. Has the time come? Has the time come, to finally take, give UNEP what it deserves, for instance, what it deserves, I would say, if you live with 16 specialized agencies of United Nations, including entity like WTO, you can live with, of course, you can live with, UNEP or UNEO, even if some governments might have the reservations. I thought we need to be little more large-hearted, to allow this entity, for whatever reasons, right from day one it was not given the specialized agency status. I would say the time has come when we need to ultimately uplift UNEP to that level. Second important component, which is my, again, very concerted thought, which has just come out, in the Yearbook of International Environmental Law, and it was reproduced in the Environmental Policy and Law Journal in December 2018, is on the revival of the UN Trusteeship Council with a new mandate for environment and the global commons. I thought, again, we will need a supervisory entity within the UN system itself, because General Assembly, being a plenary organ of United Nations, is the political organ of United Nations, cannot be. It has too many things on its platter. Economic and Social Council again gets bogged down because of the large scale agenda which it seeks to deal with. You need a conduit, a major supervisory organ within the UN system, and who else than the Trusteeship Council itself, which could be merely, it was suspended in 1994. It could be, its rules of business could be changed, and the Trusteeship Council could be revived. It could be done with amendment of the Charter of United Nations, and we know it very well, the painful process it will entail, but someday that could happen. But in spite of that, if it is possible to do things, by a resolution of the General Assembly, by some other UN mandated process, I think the Trusteeship Council could be revived and could be assigned with the task, to supervise, the global environment as well as the global commons areas. It could be done in a very, very, very carefully crafted way, so that it does not impinge upon the established structures, and those mandates could be given, like some of the conventions with a universal membership, like climate change, or like biological diversity, or like desertification. These are the two giant convention which could be immediately interested. And of course there are other areas of the global commons, the whole trusteeship. I'm sure Edith will she is the right person to speak about the planetary trust issue, and I'm sure she'll dwell much more upon that part. So I think I would say that the time has come when we need to give a serious thought. I thought the global pact could be a right vehicle, where it can be flagged, urging the General Assembly of United Nations to give due consideration for the revival of the Trusteeship Council with a new mandate for environment and the global commons. And the third part of that report, which I thought will require due consideration, which I'm sure we at different stages we have been deliberative in that part. Of course, my esteemed elder and colleague Nick Robinson has been involved in this global issue of judicial mechanism, International Judicial Academy. Of course, Antonio had been leading from the front on that issue, and Christina Voigt, she recently organized a symposium in Honolulu on that part. So I thought that probably the time has come when you need a specialized architecture, so far as the judicial settlement of the environmental disputes are concerned, where you need because gradually you need a specialized, as we see both domestically as well as on the international level, I would say gradual greening of the international courts and tribunals. You need a dispute resolution forum, which will have sufficient trappings, highly specialized agency, a court, which could be like what could be called international environment court. This is a subject of my separate study. A monograph is already under preparation, and we have an agreement with the Brill Nayoff, to provide the manuscript, within coming months. I thought, well, if not in immediate, but I think we need to also make a room and a provision for having an international environment court, what I call as an ideal, okay. So there was a time when the people simply could not dream about having an international criminal court, although the criminal court is now facing a lot of problems, because of the attitudinal problems on the part of many of the sovereign states. But I would say, well, so far as the need and quest for international environment court is concerned, I would say it's perfectly in the order. And I think again the Pact would provide a right opportunity to give some deliberation, some thought for that quest, to trigger that quest, or towards a path, put it on a path, for having ultimately an international court for the environment. I thought, well, if these three components of this report could be given due consideration, even as we the part of the scholarly exercise, I'm sure this could be taken to the third substantive session of the negotiations, which could probably make maybe some provision, maybe a paragraph each in the final recommendation, and which could be taken to the General Assembly, for instance, for its due consideration. I think the time has come when we need to give. We are running out of time, and we need to literally give. Take it seriously. Take it seriously to I would say not only make sense of the institutional architecture of the global environment governance, but also to make it work. To make it work, to ensure that the needs and aspirations of the sovereign states are duly met, so far as the architecture itself is concerned, because the states are putting their money and they expect the results also to come out. So alongside the theoretical part, the principles and the lawmaking process which is at work, we also need to ensure that this global architecture, is also firmly put into place, so that the I would say needs and aspirations of the people around the world could be squarely addressed. I thought I'll just within the limit of the time, I thought I will stop here. And I thank all of you for patient hearing and giving me this opportunity to address you through this recorded video. Thank you very much. Thank you.